Hello, everybody! Happy Friday, and welcome back to Fossil Friday Chats. I'm Brittany Stoneberg from the Science Center. With me, as always, is Gabe Santos from the Alf Museum.
TJ Fossil Friday, everybody.
TGIF. And joining us today is our guest, Dr. Heitor Francischini. Welcome, Heitor. How you doing?
I'm fine, and you guys?
Doing
Very
pretty good,
well.
pretty good.
Yeah,
It's
and
Friday.
Heitor,
Nice.
yep, it's Friday,
Yeah,
and it's Friday everywhere as Heitor is joining us all the way from Brazil.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
International Fossil Friday.
Mm-hmm. Been doing that a lot lately, and I'm very glad we've been doing it. We've gotten an opportunity to learn from a lot of cool people and learn a lot of research that I don't think a lot of folks here might be aware of.
Oh yeah, there's so many great stories out there from, what we talked about last week and so many different types of paleontology that I'm really excited to learn more instead of everyone asking me at the museum about dinosaurs all the time. This is really really exciting to learn about very new things.
Mhm. At some point, Fossil Friday chat listeners, we will do dinosaurs again. Don't worry. I know Gabe and I have been pushing the paleobotany agenda lately, but we've got to all expand our scientific horizons here.
I'm just joking. I like dinosaurs too.
Yeah.
Alrighty, well, if you're not familiar with Heitor's work, he's a professor of paleontology at UFRGS in Brazil, where he performs studies on paleobiology and paleoichnology of vertebrates, mainly from the Paleozoic and Mesozoic. Currently, his main interest is on how, when, and where tetrapods occupied desert environments through the Phanerozoic. I think that sounds cool, and I was telling you and Gabe beforehand, not super familiar with this area of paleontology, so I'm excited to acquire some knowledge myself.
Yeah, the last time Hator was at the Alf Museum, all we did was talk about footprints the whole time, and I was just sitting
Oh,
there like, so cool. I love footprints.
it was a kind of 4 years ago or
Yeah, oh
more.
man, was it? Oh geez. Time flies by way too fast.
We are growing old.
All right. If anybody has any questions for Haytor during the presentation, go ahead, put those in the chat, and we will get to those for as many as we can during a Q&A session after his presentation. So, Haytor, whenever you're ready, go ahead, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Brittany. Thank you, Gabe. I will share my presentation. Are you seeing that?
Looks good.
Okay, so let's go. Hi, everyone. Thank you, all of you, for being here. And thank Gabe, thank Brittany for the invitation. This is my very first talk in English, so I'm very nervous. I'm very excited, but let's do it. I would like to present something about the Brazilian Triassic, focusing on the continental beds, on the vertebrates, and some stuff more. So, firstly, I would like to present myself as soon as the presentation works. I think I'm frozen. Hmm. Okay. So as Brittany said, I am Professor Heitor Francischini. I teach at the Universidade Federal do Rio Grande do Sul, or the Federal University of Rio Grande do Sul, where I teach paleontology and I advise undergrad and grad students. My main research line is in paleobiology and paleoichnology of vertebrates, focusing on the Paleozoic and Mesozoic ones, basically. I also participate from the Gondwana Research Center of the university as the associated dean and of the Museum of Paleontology of the university as the curator of a virtual tour. Besides, my most important occupation for now is being a dad during a pandemic. What's not an easy task, but is my I enjoy it very much. So it's my best occupation for now. So as I told you, I am professor at UFRGS in Brazil, which is a federal university based in Porto Alegre, which is the capital of the Rio Grande do Sul state, in southernmost state of Brazil. And this state, Rio Grande do Sul, has an interesting culture, history, and diversity. These elements included native, African, European, and Gaúcho cultural elements, beside an astonishing landscape with pampas, canyons, and a huge coastal plain. And together to it, the Triassic paleofauna is part of the cultural identity of this state. And this occurs mainly because the Triassic beds, the Triassic fossiliferal beds, mainly occur in the center of this state. They are very restricted to Rio Grande do Sul state. This is particularly highlighted when we compare the Brazil and the non-contiguous USA's areas, and we note that we have about the same area, but differently from Brazil, you in the United States have several units from Triassic period, and here in Brazil we are much more restricted in area from this period. So let's begin with some words about the Triassic period. It's the first period of the Mesozoic era, just after the Permian period and just before the most famous period, that is Jurassic. The Triassic comprises about 50 million years, and it's subdivided in early, middle, and late Triassic. And in order to understand the evolution of the vertebrates in the Triassic period, we need to remember that just at the Permian-Triassic boundary, there was the deadliest mass extinction event, with up to 75% of all the species completely vanished from Earth. So the beginning of the Triassic period is marked by a recovery that in which the reminiscent lineages reoccupied the niche, the ecological niches led by those extincted animals. Geographically, the Triassic is characterized by only one huge continent, called the Pangaea. It is composed of all the former continents reunited in a single large continental mass surrounded by the Pantalastic Ocean, and there was very few geographical barriers besides the climate for fauna and flora to cross all the continent, and most of them so was cosmopolitan. Climatically, the Triassic was a very seasonal, warm and dry period, with a large arid belt on the equatorial region. And during the late Triassic, there was a kind of climatic amelioration, and the climate becomes more humid, but not less warm. In the end of this period, there was another mass extinction, making the Triassic an interval between two very important mass extinction events. What makes this period completely weird to us, especially when we see some of the fauna, mainly because much of these animals only occurs in the Triassic and have no modern descendants. So Triassic have a very weird vertebrate fauna. Back to Brazil, in Rio Grande do Sul state, we have very small outcrops with thickness of some meters. Also, there's too much vegetation because of the humid climate, but in opposition to what is expected to that, there is a very expressive tetrapod record. The geological situation of the Triassic in Brazil is somewhat complicated, and I will not bother you with that, but we can easily see that Brazilian Triassic comprise at least 5 different faunas that we will call assemblage zones or AZs. They are from the older to the earlier, the Procolophon AZ of early Triassic age, the Dinodontosaurus AZ of middle to late Triassic age, and the Santa Cruzodon, the Hyperodopedon, and the Hugranja AZs of late Triassic age. So we will start with the oldest one, the Procolophon assemblage zone, and as its name is indicated, it is dominated by the Procolophonid Procolophon, the Procolophon trigoniceps species, what leads us to an important correlation with beds from the same age from the South African Karoo Basin. Apart from these procolophonids, the record of temnospodal amphibians and archosauromorphs is very relevant and increasingly from these late years. The Dinodontosaurus assemblage zone is one of the most classical associations in Brazil, where you can find a great diversity of synapsids and archosauromorphs. And it is important to mention that no dinosaurs occur in this fauna, and rhynchosaurs are very rare. The most common genus of this fauna is the Dinodontosaurus dicynodont, which is a very a long-tusked animal, a quadruped dicynodont, and it's a mid-sized herbivore that have a type of a beak proper to macerate abrasive plants such as the horsetails, and their tusks don't serve it for feed, but for displays or perhaps for battles against predators or against individuals from the same species. So one of the most interesting things about these dicynodonts is the high abundance of juvenile individuals, what suggests us that some degree of social behavior can occur. In the black and white photo of the left corner, you can see the moment of the collection of about 10 juveniles of the collection of about 10 juveniles almost complete, coming from probably the same breeding group. These young guys are currently in exhibition at our museum, as you can see in this video. And together with them, there is a Dinodontosaurus, an adult Dinodontosaurus mounted, but it was not recovered from the same accumulation. So we are used to call this exhibition the nest, and much of the juvenile skeletons are represented by the original bones. Among the carnivores, the larger animal is the Pseudosuchian prestosuchus, here represented by this complete skull. And although extremely similar to hypercarnivore dinosaurs like the T-Rex, like Allosaurus, and other large theropods. It belongs to the crocodilian lineage, the Pseudosuchian. Different from the dinosaurs, Prestosuchus was quadrupedal, and it was the larger predator at the Brazilian Triassic, as you can see here in this photo of an almost complete specimen. In fact, cranial remains of Prestosuchus allow us to know that they were very well adaptation for predations, with long blade-shaped uh, teeth and a wide mouth opening ability, and besides the cranial kinesis that you will able to see in the video. And among its prey, probably the Dinodontosaurus was the most common. So this is the mouth opening and the cranial kinesis of Prestosuchus. So it's very, very similar to the theropods you can see in the Jurassic and Cretaceous. Besides, we also have in the Dinodontosaurus assemblage zone some small-sized carnivore and herbivorous cynodonts that are the forerunners of the mammals, and showing us that the Triassic, they were very diverse and abundant in these beds. So in general lines, this would be a reconstruction of the Dinodontosaurus assemblage zone with herbivorous dicynodonts like Dinodontosaurus, large carnivores like the Pseudosuchian Prestosuchus, and a large diversity of cynodonts like Aeliodon and Macetognathus. The next assemblage zone is the Santa Cruzodon assemblage zone, which is more restricted geographically, just occurring in 3 to 4 localities and much less diverse than the others. In this fauna, the most diverse animals are the traversodontids, which are a well-specialized herbivore group of cynodonts, including the genera Santa Cruzodon, Menodon, and Macetognathus. Together with these traversodontids, we can also find the Pseudosuchian Dagasuchus and some Proterocampsids. The next is the Hyperodapedon or Hyperodapedon AZ that bears the most iconic fauna for the entire Brazilian Triassic. Differently from the Dinodontosaurus AZ, here there are no dicynodonts, and the most profuse herbivores are the rhynchosaurs. Archosaurs and cynodonts are also very diverse, and now two important groups will appear for the first time in the geological record: the dinosaurs and the mammaliomorphs. Well, rhynchosaurs comprise these weird quadrupedal and herbivore animals. They had a beak formed by the skulls and jawbones that allowed them to prospect for plants, and a high specialized dental battery that promotes domestication. In the Brazilian fauna, we have at least two genera, the Hyperodapedon and the Teiumbaita. The Hyperodapedon AZ lived during the Carnian age, which is marked by the appearance of the dinosaurs. Actually, at the Carnian, we have at least two groups of dinosaurs well established in these beds. The Eherosaurids, that is non-related to the Jurassic and Cretaceous dinosaurs, and the Sauropodomorphs, that is the forerunners of the sauropods, And theoretically, we don't have ornithischians or theropods in these beds. Anyway, the Herosaurids are relatively large carnivores that were exclusive from the Triassic period. One of them is Staurikosaurus, which is found on the Hyperodapedon AZ, and it's the very first dinosaurs described from the entire Brazil. This occurred in the 1970 by the paleontologist Colbert. But since then, lots of fieldwork have unearthed new and very excited skeletons, some of which I'll show you now. A second and nearly complete Heterosaurid is Gnatothorax, recently rediscovered and published. It is the better preserved Heterosaurid known so far, which elucidates much of the anatomy of the group. Sauropodomorphs are even more diverse in the Hyperodapedon AZ, comprising at least 5 genera. In these pictures, you can see 3 of them, Pampadromeus, Buryolestes, and Bagualosaurus. Both Buryolestes and Pampadromeus have a ziphodont dentition, besides several other features that indicates that early sauropodomorphs were carnivores, contrasting to those giant plant-eater relatives from the Jurassic and the Cretaceous. And this is another very well preserved Buryolestes skull, just to show you the type of preservation. And archosauromorphs were also very diverse in this assemblage zone, as you can see in these pictures. You can see the Aetosauroides and the Ornithosuchian Dynamosuchus, as well as the Cynodonts. And the Hyperodapedon AZ, both carnivores and herbivores, are very diverse. So this is the framework that we have from the Hyperodapedon AZ, with lots of dinosaurs, rhynchosaurs being the most abundant animals from the entire fauna, other groups of archosauromorphs, and some synapsids. And lastly, we have the earlier fauna, which is named the Hugranja assemblage zone, and it's particularly interesting by having a large diversity of small-sized animals, such as cynodonts, lepidosaurs, and procolophonians. This is how fossils look like when found in the field. Just some pieces of bones, like crushed or smashed bones. But after a careful look and preparation, some jewels can appear, like these ones. Here you can see 2 complete skulls and a lower jaw of 2 groups of cynodonts, the Brasilodonts and the Ichthyosaurs. Both are recovered as phylogenetically close to the first mammals, mainly because of the presence of several mammalian traits in these animals. Actually, they are considered within the group Mammaliamorpha, suggesting that the roots of the entire mammalian tree are still in the Triassic. Actually, dozens of well-preserved skulls and postcranial materials allow us to track the origin of mammal traits such as the heterodont dentition, craniomandibular joint arrangement, and even histology and morphology of the soft tissues inside the skull. Other small taxa, like the rhynchocephalians and the procolophonids, are equally well preserved. And of course, we also have dinosaurs in the Hugranja assemblage zone, and one of the most representative is Guaibasaurus, with one specimen found in a kind of rest posture, as you can see in the photo. And besides, Guaibasaurus can be the only of two or less theropod representatives at the Brazilian Triassic. This fossil is also in exhibition at our museum, and you can check more information about it in our virtual tour, and we'll make you to have the link soon. So sauropodomorphs are also recorded, and macrocolumn is one of the most complete, occurring in an association of at least 3 individuals. And the preservation of macrocolumn is astonishing, and sheds light to much of the anatomy of these large herbivore dinosaurs of the late Triassic. So this should be the landscape of southern Brazil during the Norian, with most of the Rio Grande assemblage zone animals. And as you can see, the Triassic of Brazil have an expressive record, even when we consider that is restricted to the Rio Grande do Sul state. So if you would be able to recreate a Triassic park, Brazil must be one of the most potential candidates to host it. And of course, I would like to thank you all of this for the invitation, and thank all the people for being here. And if you want to, you can follow the social media of our lab at the Facebook, at the Instagram, or if you want some extra information, you can send an email to us, and here you have all the information needed for that. And finally, a visitation at the Paleontology Museum of UFRGS is completely free and available as a virtual tour. Feel free to visit us and enjoy the museum. So thank you very much, guys, and I am done for that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Heitor. That was great.
That was so cool. I've never seen animal or fossils like that. I've never seen a world like that. The Triassic was weird.
It was very
yeah.
weird.
Triassic is the weirdest period at whole the Phanerozoic.
Like, what was there was that I guess the kind of crocodilian or the Sukian thing that you showed with the video when it opened its mouth, and it kind of, you had the 3D model of that. I was just watching. I was like, I'm gonna watch this over and over again because that was so cool.
Click.
And then all those amazing fossils too.
Yes, it's true. Actually, we have at least two kinds of preservation: the very, very bad ones and the very, very good ones. And when we found the very good ones, we have spectacular fossils. So Triassic is amazing and have very weird animals of very weird complete lineages, and it's between two very important mass extinction events. Perhaps it's the most main reason that we don't know too much about Triassic fauna.
Yeah, it's not a story we hear very often, at least, here in the United States. And when we talk about paleontology, a lot of it is after that. So it was really interesting to be able to see so much of of that time period, but also from South America, where we oftentimes it just seems so far away for a lot of us.
Yeah, actually, the South America has the most expressive Triassic record, but they are mainly in Argentina. Yeah, in Argentina you have the Andes Cordillera and lots and lots and hundreds of fossils. And here in Brazil we are more restricted, but yet we have very cool animals.
The preservation was beautiful. I personally haven't seen preservation like that. And it's funny that you mentioned that you either get kind of bad preservation or really good preservation, and there's nothing, it seems like there's nothing in the middle. Like you just don't get okay preservation. Like you got some of it.
Yeah. Actually, most of the dinosaurs are very well preserved, and the other animals perhaps not very well. And much of this older strata, oldest beds of the Triassic of Brazil are more hard to find the animals because of the preservation, and the earlier ones can be easier because the preservation is incredible.
Did you know you'd always want to work on the Triassic material in Brazil, or is it something that you kind of fell into throughout as you went through your career?
Well, actually, I just started. I started to focus my research on Triassic when I did my master's, and I proposed an issue for a research thing from my advisor, and he said me no, and then he said me, well, look at that, there is a Triassic animal for study, and it was a Dicynodont. And then I did my master's, and then for the PhD I was focusing more on ichnofossils like tracks, coprolites, and then I studied a wider interval of time, like from Permian to Cretaceous. But yeah, Triassic is, I just entered this word as hello. I never see you before. Especially because I was not born in Rio Grande do Sul state. So for people abroad the state, it's very difficult to find people that studied those fossils. So I came for doing my master's, and then I know all these beasts. It was a posterior process.
That's so cool. I really, like you said, the Jurassic Park movie would be amazing. After seeing all those really cool animals, I would watch that in a second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't, instead of another Jurassic World, let's just do Triassic Park. Let's do Cretaceous Park. Let's just expand this further.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for that because you can see it's very scarier to see those theropod dinosaurs, but do you really know what is a rhynchosaur? This animal is very ugly. If I found something besides my car, I think I'll dead. I'll be dead at the same time. And it's a herbivore animal, but his face is horrible. So very more, don't know, thriller than theropods.
All right. Well, Universal, if you need to get in contact with Haytor, it's right here, ready to go.
Need some
ready for the call. One thing I was wondering,
the amber record is very rare before Jurassic.
Really?
And this is why we don't see animals from perhaps this little compies that they show it in some movies, but this is why we don't have Triassic animals in Jurassic Park movies, because there's no amber for that.
Well,
There's the science right there.
Yeah.
They have a scientific reason for not doing it, but it still makes me sad.
But there's no reason to not have Cenozoic ones.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I would love a Cenozoic park. But anyway.
Based on all of the different fauna that you showed us in your presentation, out of all of those, which one is your favorite? Like, which one do you like really enjoy?
Actually, my favorite is the last one, the Hugranja Assemblage Zone, because firstly, because this weird preservation of a lot and hundreds of very small animals. Did you see the scale? Like 5 millimeters. And we have the complete school preserved. And this is very weird how these animals can be so well preserved. And besides that, very cool animals are found there, like Dicynodonts, like dinosaurs, like phytosaurs, like amphibians. So we have all this weird fauna being mixed with our oldest ancestors. So it's kind of exciting.
Yeah.
It's my favorite.
And shout out to Erica in the chat who had pretty much the same question.
Yeah, a lot of people in the chat really liked your presentation.
Thank you very much, guys.
In terms of like the science side of things, when you're looking at the fossils of the Triassic, in terms of connecting it to more of like the global story of that time, how does South America kind of fit into that story? Because for those who may not know, the continents were in a very different position at that time as well, right?
Yes, actually, during the Triassic, we had just one continent, like the Pangaea, and several species of animals were able to cross the entire continent. So these rhynchosaurs, these ugly rhynchosaurs that I show you, the Hyperodapedon, I don't even know how I spell it, was very firstly described from England. So we have exactly the same genus. And besides that, we have several other animals we share with Africa, the Southern African karoo. From India, we have some animals that occurs in Brazil, South Africa, India, Madagascar, and of course Argentina and places closer to Brazil. So this is one point. We share with lots of places the same animals. Another point, we have animals that were exclusive from South America or from the southern part of Pangaea, like the dinosaurs. Dinosaurs occurs or appears here before than they appears in the other parts of the world. So those animals that I show you from the Hyperodapedon assemblage zones, they are together with the Argentinian ones, the oldest dinosaurs of the entire world. The same from the mammaliamorphs. These mammaliamorphs are the oldest ones from the entire world. So these two groups have very deep roots inside the Triassic of Brazil. So this is why these beds are very important to the whole world.
Definitely. I'm still very like not shocked, but I was just so interested when you said that some of these early sauropodomorphs were meat eaters or carnivorous, and they adapted later into, these huge herbivores. That kind of story that, you can only tell from from finding those kind of fossils from earlier, like when you see the evidence in the teeth and their body shape, those were for a long time pieces that were missing from the story. And so as we start to expand out and really get this global picture by looking at fossils from around the world and comparing them, we're really it really helps you appreciate how connected and how cool like the story of evolution is that you never really think about.
Sure. And actually, sauropodomorphs and theropods have a common ancestor. So the general ball plan of this animal should be a bipedal, a agile, and carnivore animal. So before it turns into a very large, long-necked, and a herbivore sauropod, all this transition from a smaller meat eater occurred in the sauropodomorph lineage. And of course, we just have this information because we have these fossils, but it's very interesting.
Awesome. This question is coming from Dr. Alton Dooley, who says, apologies if I missed the beginning, but are these deposits from rift basins?
Sorry, you frozen from some seconds.
So this question is from Dr. Alton Dooley asking, apologies if I missed this at the beginning of the presentation, but are these deposits that you're speaking about from rift basins?
No, they are not rift deposits, but these deposits we called the Santa Maria Formation, they are restricted by fault zones, fault lines. So I'm not geologist, so I'm afraid to tell you a wrong answer, but they are not grabens, but they are controlled, or at least derived from tectonics.
Cool.
But it's a very local tectonics, so perhaps it don't configure the example.
So thank you.
Any more questions in the chat, Britt?
That looks like that's it.
Okay, well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us, and thank you, Heitor, as well. What a fantastic talk! And again, like the whole time, I was just sitting there, like, this is amazing, and my brain was just going crazy. I was fascinated by all the new things that I'm going to be definitely reading about later, for sure.
Oh, nice. No, thank you guys to invite me and for have some patience to listen this horrible English. It's very important to me to practice. So thank you very much.
Well, you did a fantastic job, if you ask me.
Yeah,
Better than me
great.
a lot of times.
Yeah.
We usually end the show with one question, and then that's if you have any advice for future paleontologists, what would you say to them? Especially, somebody who wants to work in the Triassic of Brazil or something like that.
Just enjoy what you want to do. This is the best advice. I think all paleontologists will say that, but it's the very truth. We need to enjoy it, or in a world we don't have many funding for research. We have some anti-scientists that are governing our countries, and we have this particularly problematic moment of the pandemics. If you don't enjoy to do research, you will not be able to do that, because researchers are kind of not well supported from many reasons. for many peoples, and we need to turn this table. Just like the sportists, we can see the Olympic Games, and you see that much of those guys and those girls are not being very well supported, and they have a lot of potential. So they are there because they love what they do. So it's the same from research, from paleontology.
Absolutely. Great advice. Thank you so much, Heitor. Oh,
Yeah.
and really quick for our audience, Heitor had mentioned their virtual museum at the end of his talk, and I posted the link in the chat, and I'll also add it to the description later. I really recommend checking out the virtual museum. I got to play with it a couple days ago, and it is so cool being able to explore a museum like, you know, thousands of miles away from the comfort of my home. And there are so many really cool, amazing fossils in there that you will not see anywhere else. So please, if you have a chance, click on the link and explore the amazing museum, and be sure to support the museum if you can. And with that, as always, if you like Fossil Friday chats and programs like this and want to support it at the Alf Museum and Western Science Center, you can find links on how to do that in the description below. And make sure you like and subscribe to our channel for more stories from the world of paleontology. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you next week. Bye!
Bye bye. Thank you.